Every Friday afternoon for 14 months, Imani Okafor sat down at the kitchen table with a fresh piece of paper and drew her father. Not from a photograph. She had photographs. She had a whole shoebox of them under her bed. But she did not draw from photographs. She drew from memory. From the specific interior image of him she kept updated in her mind. The way you update something important so it does not go stale. She drew him in his uniform. She drew him the same size every time, large, taking up most of the page, because that is how he had always seemed to her. Not tall exactly, though he was tall, just large in the way that means, this person is the reason the room feels safe. She drew him with a smile. She drew it slightly too big, the way children draw smiles, so it was clear it was a smile and not something else. She folded each drawing in thirds, the way she had seen her grandmother fold letters, and she put each one in an envelope and addressed it in large block letters. Desmond Okafor. Then the APO address her grandmother had written on an index card and taped to the refrigerator. And her grandmother helped her mail them, one per week, 58 drawings over 14 months. She did not know which ones arrived. She did not know if any arrived. She drew them anyway. Every Friday. Because it was the only direction she knew how to send her father something, and because doing it felt like talking to him even when talking to him was not possible. She was 8 years old, and on a Saturday afternoon in late March, she walked onto a game show stage in Lubbock, Texas, with the 59th drawing in her backpack, the one she had not yet mailed, and she did not know what was behind the curtain. It was a Saturday in late March, and Lubbock, Texas, was doing what Lubbock does in late March. Wide sky, flat light. A wind that came from somewhere without obstacles and arrived with strong opinions. The Family Feud mobile taping unit was set up in the exhibition hall at the Civic Center, the kind of space that smelled like industrial carpet and was somehow deeply comfortable for game show audiences, who came in through the south doors with the particular energy of a Saturday crowd, slightly looser than a weekday, more willing to make noise. Carrying an extra hour of sleep and a willingness to be delighted. The audience was full. Good mix. Several families clearly in from out of town, a group of teenagers with a chaperone who kept counting them, a table of women in their 60s who appeared to have organized this as a group outing and were having a better time than any other contingent in the room. The Okafor family was backstage. Grandmother Lorraine, 58, built like someone who has been the structural center of things for a very long time, with close-cropped silver hair and the particular calm of a woman who has handled harder situations than this and knows the difference, was adjusting the collar of Imani's blouse with the focused attention of someone doing something practical to avoid doing something emotional. Imani, 8 years old, was not particularly interested in her collar. She was interested in whether they had snacks backstage, which they did, and whether the production staff person named Keisha had meant it when she said the studio lights would feel warm but not hot, which she had, and whether the game was harder than it looked on TV, which apparently it was not. She had her backpack with her. Small, bright yellow, a giraffe printed on the front pocket. She had not taken it off since they arrived. Lorraine had suggested she leave it in the car, and Imani had considered this for approximately 0 seconds and declined. The rest of the family team, Lorraine's sister Adaize's husband Clifford, and Imani's teenage cousin Talia, 17, who had been skeptical about the whole enterprise until they got here and was now taking it very seriously, were going over strategy in the prep area with the energy of people who have a plan and a small amount of faith in it. Nobody was telling Imani about the plan. Not the family plan, the show plan. 3 weeks ago, the show's producers had reached out to Lorraine through a contact at the Family Feud audience coordination team. They had heard through the application Lorraine had filed, in the section marked Family Circumstances, about Desmond. About the 14 months. About the 58 drawings. The producers had made calls. Desmond Okafor had landed at Fort Hood 48 hours ago. He had been in a car since 6 that morning. He was currently in a green room on the other side of a set of double doors, wearing his dress uniform, eating a sandwich, and trying to remember the last time he had been this nervous. He had survived 14 months in a deployment zone. He was terrified of what was about to happen because it was too good. At the podium, Steve Harvey was reading the card a producer had handed him. He read it slowly. He read it again. He set it down. He looked at the curtain. He thought about his own daughters. He picked the card back up and read it one more time, just to be sure he had it right. Desmond Okafor had grown up in Flint, Michigan, the second of 4 children. His father worked at the water treatment plant for 23 years and coached Little League and made pancakes every Saturday morning from a recipe he claimed was his own, and was clearly from the back of a Bisquick box, and none of his children had ever told him they knew this, because the pancakes were good and the ritual mattered more than the source. Desmond had been a restless kid. Good energy, badly directed until about 15, when a coach at his high school had looked at him during a gym class and said, "You have too much in you to waste it," which was the kind of sentence a boy remembers because nobody had said it to him before in those words. He straightened out. Not all at once, gradually, the way character builds, through small decisions accumulating into a direction. He enlisted at 20. The army gave the restlessness a container. He was good at it, patient in the field, decisive under pressure, the kind of person other people instinctively follow not because they announce leadership, but because they demonstrate it in small things, consistently, before anything is required of them. He met Yolanda, Imani's mother, at 25 in Flint, on a weekend leave. She was Lorraine's daughter, which meant she came with an entire infrastructure of family that had opinions and expressed them. Desmond had grown up in a family with opinions, so he knew how to hold his own. They were married within the year. Imani arrived when Desmond was 26, on a Tuesday morning in October, and he had been holding his breath in a hospital waiting room in Flint, and when the nurse came out and said, "You have a daughter," he had laughed out loud at nothing in particular. The specific laugh of someone who has been given exactly what they wanted and has not yet processed it. Yolanda had died when Imani was 4. A car accident on I-75 in February. The kind of accident that happens in the specific combination of black ice and bad timing that does not require error, only presence. She had been on her way to pick up Imani from Lorraine's house. Desmond had been on base. The call had come at 6:15 in the morning. The 3 years since had been built around Imani and Lorraine, and a rotating structure of family support that Lorraine had organized with the same efficiency she brought to everything, which was considerable. Desmond was present as much as his deployments allowed, home for stretches, then gone, the rhythm that military families learn to live inside of whether they chose it or not. This deployment had been the longest, 14 months. Imani had been 6 when he left, and she was 8 now, and she was a different person in the specific ways that children become different people between 6 and 8, which is faster and more complete than most adults remember. She had started the drawings when she was 7. Not because anyone suggested it. Because one Friday afternoon she had sat at the kitchen table and she had needed to do something that felt like reaching toward him, and drawing was the only direction she had. She drew him in his uniform because that was the version of him she thought of when she thought of him somewhere else. The version that made the being away make sense. The uniform meant he is doing something that has a reason. She was 8. She understood more than 8 implies. Lorraine had helped her address the envelopes. She had not helped her with the drawings, because the drawings were not Lorraine's to help with. She had understood that from the first Friday. 58 envelopes. She did not know how many arrived. Army mail from a deployment zone is a complicated system, and Lorraine had not wanted to create expectations she could not guarantee. She had mailed them and hoped, and not said anything to Imani about uncertainty. What she knew 3 weeks ago when the show's producer called and she had explained the whole story, The producer had gone quiet for a moment and then said, "We're going to need to make a call to Fort Hood." What Desmond had, in the pocket of his dress uniform right now, in the green room on the other side of the double doors, a folded piece of paper, slightly creased from being refolded many times. One of Imani's drawings. Him in his uniform, smile slightly too big. The block letters of his name at the top of the page in the handwriting of a child. This one had arrived in November. He had carried it with him since November. Through the remaining months of the deployment, in his breast pocket, in the same position where you put something you need to be able to touch when the night is long and the distance is the whole world. He did not know she had the 59th drawing in her backpack. He did not know she was 10 feet from the stage, still wearing the backpack, still refusing to take it off. And Imani did not know, not yet, that the drawing she had sent in November was traveling toward her right now, in her father's breast pocket, on his way back from where he had been. The game started at 3:15. The Okafor family came out ready. Lorraine hit the buzzer on the first question with a confidence that suggested she had been practicing this at home, which Talia later confirmed was true. Adeze had an encyclopedic knowledge of what the survey said people would name when asked about things found in a bathroom, a category that recurred more than you'd expect. Clifford was deliberate, and occasionally wrong, but wrong with full commitment, which the audience responded to warmly. Talia, who had been skeptical, was now the most competitive person on the team. And Imani Okafor, 8 years old, played Family Feud with the focused joy of a child who has decided this is the most interesting thing she has ever done and intends to give it her full attention. She could not reach the buzzer without jumping slightly, so she jumped. She got an answer right in the second round, a #1 survey answer, best answer on the board. And the look on her face when the board lit up was the specific expression of a child encountering the sensation of being exactly right at exactly the right moment. The audience loved her immediately. Not the performance of loving a child on television, the actual thing, the response to a small person who is completely and unconsciously herself. She was not playing to the cameras. She did not know where the cameras were. She was playing the game. Steve Harvey had been watching her since the family walked out. He had the card in his jacket pocket, the one the producer had given him before the taping. He had memorized it. He was going to need to handle this right, and he knew it. Not because it was complicated, but because it was simple, the right way. And simple and right is harder than it looks when you are on camera in front of 200 people. Between the second and third round during the reset, he crouched down to Imani's level. He did this sometimes, it was a thing he did, physically lowering himself to talk to children on the show, not for the cameras but because he had daughters, and he knew you look at children at their level when you want to actually talk to them. "How are you doing?" he said. "Good," she said. "We almost got the bonus." "Almost," he agreed. "What's in the backpack?" She had been wearing it the whole time. Even when she was jumping for the buzzer. Even when she ran back to the family section. The yellow backpack with the giraffe on the front pocket bouncing, she looked at him for a moment with the assessing look of an 8-year-old deciding whether a question is serious. "A drawing," she said. "Yeah?" "For my dad," she said. "But I didn't mail it yet. I was going to mail it Friday, but we came here instead." Steve held very still. "What's the drawing of?" he said. "Him," she said. "I always draw him. Every week?" "Every Friday," she said. Like this was obvious, like what else would you do on Fridays? "Does he know you draw them?" She considered this. "I think so. I mail them. Grandma says they might not all get there, but I mail them anyway." She looked at the backpack straps on her shoulders. "I don't want to leave it in the car because what if something happened to it?" Steve Harvey looked at this child. He thought about the card in his jacket pocket. He thought about the dress uniform in the green room 20 feet behind the curtain. He thought, Handle this right. Imani, he said. Can I ask you something important? She nodded. What would you do if your dad walked through that curtain right now? Imani looked at the curtain. She looked at Steve. She looked at the curtain again. Is he there? She said. Steve said, I'm asking what you would do. That's not the same as saying he's not there, she said. The audience, collectively, understood they were watching an 8-year-old conduct a precise interrogation. Steve Harvey had been on live television for a very long time. He had been caught off guard by children before. He had not been caught off guard quite like this. You're right, he said. It's not. Imani set down the small foam buzzer paddle she had been holding. She did it very deliberately, the way you set something down when you are freeing your hands for something else. If he walked through that curtain, she said, carefully, like she was trying out the sentence, I would run to him. Yeah? Steve said. But I don't want it to be a TV thing, she said. The room went quiet. The way rooms go quiet when a child says something that is more precise than what the adults around them were going to say. What do you mean? Steve said. I've seen the videos, she said. Surprise homecomings. Soldiers coming home. They do them at schools and games and stuff. She was looking at him very directly. And they're good. They're nice. But they're also kind of... She searched for the word. Organized. Like everyone is watching. And the kid doesn't know. And then, everyone is watching them not know. Steve was quiet. I don't want to be the kid everyone is watching not know, she said. If my dad is behind that curtain, I want to go get him myself. Not have him come out like a thing on a show. In the family section, Lorraine had her hand over her mouth. Talia was looking at her cousin with an expression that contained, without translation, the word, of course. In the green room, Desmond Okafor could not hear what was happening on the stage. He had been told to wait. He was waiting. He had his hands on his knees and his eyes on the double doors, and he was using the patience he had developed over 14 months, which was considerable, and it was not quite enough. The producer monitoring backstage had an earpiece. She had heard everything. She made a decision. She knocked on the green room door. Change of plan, she said. Steve was still crouched down at Imani's level. Can I tell you something? He said. Okay, she said. Your grandmother organized this, he said. She called the show. She told us about the drawings. He paused. We reached out to Fort Hood. Imani was very still. Your dad got home 48 hours ago, Steve said. He has been in a car since 6 o'clock this morning. Imani's chin came up. He is in a room right now, Steve said, 20 feet behind that curtain. And he is wearing his dress uniform. And he has been waiting in that room for 40 minutes. The audience made the sound a room makes when 200 people hold their breath at the same time. Imani did not say anything. I was going to bring him out, Steve said. That was the plan. He walks through, the music plays, everyone cheers. It's a good moment. But I said I didn't want that, Imani said. You did, Steve said. You're right, so here's what I'm going to do instead. He stood up. He looked at the audience. He looked at the cameras. He looked at the production team at the edge of the stage. We're going to clear the cameras from that side, he said, not to Imani, to the room. We're going to ask everyone to be quiet. And this young lady is going to go get her father herself. He looked at Imani. Is that what you want? She thought about it for 1 second. Yes, she said. But, what? She reached back and unzipped the front pocket of her yellow backpack. She took out a piece of paper, folded in thirds. The 59th drawing, the one she had not yet mailed. Can you give this to him first? She said. Before I come. So he knows it's me. Steve Harvey took the folded drawing from her. He held it for a moment. Then he turned and walked toward the curtain. He did not look at the cameras. He did not say anything. He walked through the curtain. The audience did not make a sound. Steve came back without the drawing. He came back through the curtain and he walked to the center of the stage and he crouched back down to Imani's level and he said, quietly, just to her, "He has it." Imani looked at him. "He cried," Steve said, "when I gave it to him. She absorbed this." "What did he say?" "He said he already has one. From November. He said he's been carrying it with him since November." Steve paused. In his breast pocket, something moved through Imani's face. Recognition, maybe, or the feeling of something you sent into the distance landing somewhere you could not see. "It got there," she said. "It got there," Steve confirmed. She nodded once. "Clean, okay," she said. She unzipped the main compartment of her backpack. She reached in and took out a Velcro wallet, the kind with cartoon characters on it, and unzipped it and checked that something was inside and zipped it back up and put it in her jacket pocket. Nobody knew what this was. Nobody asked. It was clearly important and clearly hers. Then she stepped forward. "I'm ready," she said. Steve stood up. He looked at the audience, 200 people, completely silent, leaning forward approximately 2 degrees without knowing they were doing it. "This young lady," he said, to the room, to the cameras, to nobody and everybody, "is going to go get her father. That's all. We are going to be quiet, and she is going to go get her father." He moved to the side. He stepped off the stage. He sat down in the front row of the audience section, not on stage, not hosting. He just sat down, in a chair, in the audience. Because this moment did not belong to the host. Imani walked to the curtain. She was 8 years old, and she was wearing a yellow backpack with a giraffe on the front pocket, and she was wearing her good shoes, the ones with a small buckle on the side. And she walked with the complete purposefulness of a child who knows exactly where she is going and has been going there for 14 months. She stopped at the curtain. She put her hand on it. She stood there for a moment. This is the part, this specific moment, a child's hand on a curtain she has not yet opened, that people who were in the audience that day say they will carry the longest. Not what came before, not what came after, the moment between. Imani standing at the curtain with her hand on it and the whole room holding perfectly still around her, waiting for her to go through. She went through. The curtain closed behind her. The audience waited. The production team waited. Steve Harvey, sitting in a chair in the front row of the audience, was very still. 12 seconds passed. Then a sound came through the curtain. Not words, not the sound of a reunion being performed, a sound that had no structure and no intention, the sound of a small person making contact with the specific person they have been missing, the involuntary sound of that. And then, this is the part that went through the room like something physical, a man's voice. Low, one word. "Baby." And then quiet. And then from somewhere behind the curtain, faint but audible to the whole room because the whole room was completely silent, Imani Okafor, age 8, said, "You smell the same." The audience came apart. Not in applause. In the sound of 200 people being broken open by a sentence said by a child who has been waiting 14 months to say it. The specific observation of a girl who has been memorizing her father in his absence, who has been holding on to every detail she had and was checking now, upon return, that the details still matched. He smelled the same. He was still him. In the front row of the audience section, Steve Harvey put his hand over his face. He did not try to compose himself. He simply sat there in the front row with his hand over his eyes, in the way of a man who has no interest in hiding what is happening to him, but needs a moment he is not going to share with the camera. He got up and walked off the stage. He was gone for 3 minutes. The audience understood, without being told, that they were not to do anything in particular while he was gone. They waited. The production team waited. Lorraine in the family section was not doing anything except existing in the specific way of a grandmother who has been holding a family together for 4 years and is now, for the first time, allowed to set it down for a moment. The curtain was still closed. From behind it, the sounds of a reunion happening at its own pace, in its own time. Not for anyone's benefit but its own. The particular sounds of people who have missed each other being in the same room again. Not dramatic, not curated, just real. A voice. A response. A laugh, low, and then Imani's laugh on top of it, the full one. Adeze in the family section heard Imani's laugh and pressed both hands to her face. Clifford was looking at the ceiling. Talia had her arm around Lorraine. Steve came back. He walked back from the side of the stage with the particular composure of someone who has dealt with something privately and is returning to the public space. His eyes were clear. His face was settled. He was the host again, not performing the hosting, but carrying the role with the ease of someone who has found it again after a few minutes of not needing it. He walked to the center of the stage. He looked at the audience. "Give them a minute," he said. It was all he said. They gave them a minute. Then the curtain opened. Desmond Okafor came through first. He was 34 years old and wearing his dress uniform, and he was holding his daughter, who had her legs wrapped around his waist and her face in his neck, and both arms around him, in the total way that children hold people they have been missing, not holding on to, holding into. Like they are trying to close the distance not just in space but in all the ways distance works. He walked to the center of the stage. He was not performing anything. He was carrying his daughter in the middle of a television stage and looking at the room with the expression of a man who has been in many difficult places and returned to this specific one, and is understanding in real time what this specific one is. The room stood up. Not some of it. All of it. The full audience. The women from the outing. The teenagers. The chaperone who had lost count of the teenagers. The retired couple. The church contingent from 3 rows back. Everyone stood up at once. Not on cue. Not with any signal. Because that is what you do when a soldier walks onto a stage carrying his daughter home from a 14-month deployment, and you happen to be in the room. Desmond looked at them. He did not say anything. He nodded. Once, the nod of a man who knows that what is in the room is real and is receiving it without trying to match it. Imani was still in his arms. She had her face in his neck. She came up after a moment. She leaned back far enough to look at him. Really look, the way she looked at him when she drew him. Checking the face against the interior image she had been maintaining. "You're taller," she said. "You're taller," he said. "I'm 8, she said, as if this explained everything. Which it did. Lorraine came down from the family section. Desmond looked at his mother-in-law, the woman who had raised his daughter for 14 months, who had mailed 58 envelopes, who had organized this entire day and not told a soul what she was organizing, and he shifted Imani to one arm and reached out and pulled Lorraine into it, and the 3 of them stood there in the middle of the stage, and Lorraine put her face against his shoulder and held on, and did not make any sound, and did not need to. Steve Harvey was standing to the side. He had his hand over his mouth again. He was not walking off this time. He was staying for this part. In Desmond's breast pocket, between the dress uniform jacket and his chest, was a folded piece of paper. The drawing from November, Desmond in his uniform, smile slightly too big, name in block letters at the top. The one that had crossed an ocean and come back in a pocket. In Imani's jacket pocket, the Velcro wallet she had checked before going through the curtain. Nobody had asked what was in it. Later, when someone did, she showed them. She had been saving $2.35 since the start of the deployment. She had been going to buy him something when he came home. She had not decided what yet. The stage settled slowly, the way things settle after a long hold. Chairs were brought. The kind of informal arrangement that happens when a television set stops being a set and becomes a room where something real is occurring. Chairs in a loose grouping. No particular geometry, just people near each other. Desmond sat with Imani on his lap. She was not going anywhere, and he was not putting her down, and the production team had the good sense not to suggest either. She had her head against his chest, against the dress uniform, against the pocket where the drawing was. She was listening to his heartbeat. This was something she had done since she was small. She had a habit of pressing her ear to her father's chest. Not to be comforted, but just to check. To confirm. Lorraine sat next to them, not quite touching. Close, Adaise and Clifford and Talia arranged themselves around the edge of it. The family closing in around the center the way families do, not crowding it, just being the perimeter of it. Steve pulled a chair and sat across from them. He let it settle for a moment. He gave it time. "I want to say something," he said. "And then I'll leave you alone. Because this is yours, not mine." Imani looked at him from her father's lap. Desmond looked at him. "I have been doing this a long time," Steve said, "and I have learned to read a room. I have learned to know when something is real and when something is television." He paused. "This has been real since the moment this young lady told me she didn't want her reunion to be a TV thing." He looked at Imani. That was the moment. He paused. 8 years old, someone is trying to give her something she has been waiting for. And she says, "Not like that. On my terms. I will go get him myself." He let the room have it. "And then she gave me the drawing, and then she asked me to give it to him first so he would know it was her." He looked at Desmond. He had one already. In his pocket, the one from November. He paused. "I want to say something about those drawings. 59 drawings, 14 months, every Friday. Not because anyone told her to. Because she needed a direction to send love in, and that was the direction she had, and she used it." He looked at the audience. Most of us, when the people we love are far away and we cannot reach them, stop sending. Because we don't know if it arrives. Because we can't confirm it. Because the uncertainty is its own kind of pain. He paused. This child kept sending, 59 times, not knowing if a single one arrived, not stopping because of the uncertainty, sending anyway. He looked back at Imani. "That drawing from November," he said, "has been in your father's breast pocket every single day since November. Through every remaining day of that deployment. He carried it the way you carry something you need to be able to touch." Imani was very still. "You didn't know it arrived," Steve said. "But it did, and you didn't stop sending because you didn't know. You kept going." He paused. "That is the lesson. That is the whole lesson." He looked at the audience. "You do not always know when what you are sending arrives. You do not get confirmation. You do not get a read receipt." He paused. "You send anyway. Because love is not a message that needs delivery confirmation. It is the act of sending, sustained in whatever direction you have." He sat back. "This family," he said, "has done something in the past 14 months that I want everyone in this room to carry with them when they leave. They kept sending. All of them." Lorraine mailed the envelopes. Imani drew the drawings. Desmond carried one across an ocean in his pocket. He paused. Every single direction. Every single one of them, sending. He looked at Imani. "You can open the wallet now if you want," he said. "I think you found something better to spend it on." Imani thought about this. She reached into her jacket pocket. She took out the Velcro wallet. She held it out to her father. "This is yours," she said. "I was saving it." Desmond took it. He did not open it. He held it in both hands. "What's in it?" he said. "235, she said. for when you came back." He put his arms back around her. He looked at the ceiling for a moment, doing the thing men do when they are deciding something is not going to happen in public. It happened anyway. They stayed until the Civic Center staff needed the room back. This took longer than expected, because there were things to say that could not be rushed, 14 months of things. Compressed now into the specific format of a Saturday afternoon in a game show studio in Lubbock, Texas, which was not the format anyone would have chosen, but which was the one that was available, and which turned out to be sufficient. Desmond sat in the chair with Imani in his lap for most of it. She did not get down. She did not appear to consider getting down. She had waited 14 months, and she was operating on the principle that she had earned this, and was going to use it. She told him at some point about her third-grade teacher, whose name was Miss Ferreira, who had a rabbit named Galileo, who lived in a cage in the corner of the classroom, and who had once eaten most of a student's homework, which Miss Ferreira had verified was a legitimate excuse, the only documented legitimate version of that excuse in the history of homework excuses. She told him about the game she had not won but almost won. She told him, with some seriousness, that the studio lights were warm but not hot, exactly as Keisha had said. Desmond listened to all of it. He did not take his arms from around her. He asked follow-up questions about Galileo the rabbit and about whether the buzzer was hard to reach, and she told him, and he listened. Lorraine sat next to them and did not say anything for a long time, and then said something to Desmond quietly that was not audible to anyone else, and he nodded, and they both looked at Imani, and whatever the private language of that exchange was. It was complete. Steve Harvey left them to it. He shook Desmond's hand at some point, the specific handshake of a man greeting another man who has been somewhere Steve has not been and has come back, the handshake that says, "I know I cannot know what that was, and I am glad you are here." Desmond received it the way soldiers receive that handshake, which is graciously, and without needing it to be anything more than it is. He drove them back to the hotel. Imani sat in the back seat next to him, still talking, now about the giraffe on the backpack, and how it was named Gerald, she had named it Gerald, and whether giraffes would be good at Family Feud because they would be able to see the board easily. Desmond said he thought giraffes would be excellent at Family Feud. She found this completely satisfying. Back at the hotel, after dinner, after Imani had been put to bed with the specific difficulty of putting to bed a child who has had the best day of her life and does not want it to end, after she had finally gone to sleep in her father's old t-shirt that Lorraine had packed without being asked, Desmond sat at the small table in the hotel room. He had the drawing in front of him, the one from November, the one he had carried, and next to it, the 59th one. The one Imani had made on the Friday before the taping, the one she had not mailed, the one she had brought in her backpack to give him in person. He looked at them side by side. Same size, same uniform, same smile, slightly too big, same him, through 14 months and 59 Fridays. He folded the 59th drawing and put it in his breast pocket next to the November one. He turned off the light. If you know someone who has been sending love in a direction with no confirmation it arrived, share this with them today. It arrives. Leave Friday in the comments if you understand why.